delighted to be joined right now by Kate Barker, who's the Chief Executive of the LGB Alliance, Lesbian, Gay and Bisexual Alliance. Very, very good afternoon to you on what is largely, I think for most of us, a very happy day because we've had a victory for sanity at the Supreme Court. That ruling, which took 88 pages, 5 years for the case to come all the way to the Supreme Court, 5 judges, could have just been a one-word answer: no, trans women aren't women, they're men. Biological sex is meaningful, sex is non-binary, is binary, and you can't change it. Could have been written, you know, in a few words, but an 88-page ruling, but it's come down on the voice of common sense. How happy are you?
Well, pretty happy. We're all sort of aching slightly around here from smiling. It's absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant news for women, brilliant news for lesbians. It's just such good news for all reasonable people who've got even an ounce of common sense. And whilst the ruling didn't explicitly say lesbians don't have a penis, we were looking for that line in the judgment. I think it's pretty much, yeah, it would have been great, but it's pretty much implicit. A man who goes online, buys a gender recognition certificate for £5 can no longer pretend to be a woman, and more importantly for us, pretend to be a lesbian, which just caused huge upset and difficulties. Yeah. Lesbians have not had the right so far to associate freely. Yeah. If we were to say, you can't come into this group because you're a man, perfectly common sense position, we would be told that we might be prosecuted or that we were bigots. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And I think most people watching this, and I've been listening to some of your earlier callers, will think, this crazy. How could it possibly have taken the Supreme Court to come to this?
That's largely been the response. Yeah, but that's good, and it's fascinating.
Absolutely,
it's fascinating. Again, it's been one of the impacts of this that people haven't paid attention to. We talked about trans-identified rapists being in women's prisons. Talk about women's refuges, women's sport with male cheats. Let's call them what they are. Entering women's sport, changing rooms, toilets. A lot of that's been talked about. But when I read, I think one of your reports, something like 40% of people now on these dating websites for lesbians are men claiming to be lesbians. They're not. They're men, predatory men, and a lot of young women who are just sort of coming out and just coming, coming to recognise their sexuality and enjoy it and experiment, are feeling like they're bigots, they're transphobic if they don't agree to date someone who claims to be a woman who's clearly a man. I mean, in the 1950s, or in fact, frankly, it's been happening in the Big Brother house in the last week, hasn't it? Someone saying, oh, you wouldn't be a lesbian if you spent a few days with me, darling. All you need is a good sing-to from the right bloke. You haven't met the right bloke yet. Well, the people on the left who would claim that that's horribly homophobic and horrible, they seem to think it's absolutely fine if a man pretends he's a woman and does it.
Yes, absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head, because it is an excuse for everybody from the right and left to just exercise their misogyny and feel like they're progressive and virtuous at the same time. And it's all part of this a weaponising of an idea of kindness, because most people, all of us really, don't want to see marginalised people suffer. Nobody wants individuals to have a hard time with who they believe they are or with their sexuality. And our instinct is always to try and kind of look out for people who are struggling. But that's been weaponised against the gay community in particular by groups, the TQ plus groups, which have attached themselves to our movement, which has taken absolutely decades to arrive at the position where we are in society, and have been undoing all that from within. And you're right about young people in particular, and young lesbians, who it's horrifying for them. Just maybe they're 17, they're 18, they're just thinking, well, I might be gay, I might be a lesbian. To be told that they're bigoted if they won't consider having sex with a man who says he's a lesbian. Now, if that isn't conversion practice, I really don't know what is.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, people just have no idea this stuff is happening. But isn't it funny how predatory men will find their way into those women's only spaces online and in the bathrooms and the toilets and the prisons? Isn't it? What a surprise. That's what predatory men do. It's almost like there was a reason why we wanted those single sex spaces in the first place. Let me just come to John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland. Now, this, of course, is a UK Supreme Court ruling. It affects the whole of, well, certainly of Britain. I don't think it covers Northern Ireland, but this decision has been accepted by the First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, so it sounds like there will not be a challenge. It has not been accepted. This will come as a surprise to you, Kate Barker, by the, what they call themselves, leading LGBTQ plus charity, Stonewall. They were a fantastic charity for lesbian and gay rights. As you say, added on the TQ plus. Still haven't worked out what the Q and the plus and all that is about, but there we are. I don't know why T has got anything to do with LGB, but there we are. But they've issued a statement on today's Supreme Court ruling calling it incredibly worrying for the trans community. Simon Blake, the chief executive of Stonewall, says Stonewall shares the deep concern at the widespread implications for today's ruling from the Supreme Court. It will be incredibly worrying for the trans community and all of us who support them. They pointed out that actually the Supreme Court ruling did include talk about, how trans people need to be protected from discrimination. No one was planning to discriminate against trans people, obviously. But he says also Stonewall will continue its works with the government and parliamentarians to achieve equal rights under the law for LGBTQ plus people. I mean, gay people have equal rights under the law right now. What rights?
Sure.
Do trans people not have equal rights under the law? They do, don't they?
They do, and that was made really, really clear. The judges were very careful to discuss that in their ruling this morning. But I'd just be interested to know why Simon Blake doesn't have a deep concern for lesbians. I was at the front of the Supreme Court this morning.
Yeah.
You could not move for dancing lesbians celebrating and shouting, which was like quite the sight. If your charity is LGBTQ plus, the L's are lesbians. Let's not forget them.
Yeah.
We are celebrating this ruling. There's clearly a conflict there at the heart of it, and when rights are clashing, we need to be grown up enough, as the Supreme Court have been, and I think they've done it very well, to say, here's where those rights clash. How can we unpick it to make sure that nobody is disadvantaged?
Yeah.
I think we need to recognise the difference between rights and privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what that's where it's clashing, I feel.
Well, there is the thing, exactly. I can completely understand if someone genuinely does believe, I believe quite wrongly, that they're born in the wrong body and a man is appearing to look like he is a woman, wouldn't want to go into a men's bathroom. I get that. But I'm sorry, you don't get to, by that right, to take the rights of women and their rights and their need for safe, single-sex spaces like toilets and changing rooms, refuges and the like.
Yeah.
We need to come up with another accommodation. I'm quite happy to do that. But also when we've seen that where women have been very accommodating, we like to be nice generally, do we not, about gender recognition certificates and being kind and using people's preferred pronouns. When that was taken advantage of by large numbers of predatory men to gain access to women's rights, trans, identified men who raped women, saying, "Oh, I'm a she or a her. I'd like to go into women's prison and have you refer to my penis, her penis." I mean, when that happened, surely the people in the British government, in the Scottish government, Welsh government, should have woken up and gone, "This is clearly not right." How hopeful are you that this ruling is a game changer and we won't see, as we do right now, men in women's prisons? There are men in women's prisons right now who identify as women. The issue with hospitals, we've got an employment tribunal ongoing right now, a nurses forced to change in front of a male colleague who claims that he is trans. We've got a woman who's just been lost her job after being outrageously racially abused by a by a trans-identifying paedophile prisoner who referred to her as the N-word and goodness knows what else in a very aggressive way. She referred to him as he and Mr. Why? Because she had to put a catheter up his penis, for goodness sake. I mean, he was a man. Do you think that these cases go away now or what?
No, I don't. They're certainly not going to disappear overnight. But I think, sort of looping back to what you were saying about these small kindnesses where we say we'll use people's pronouns and all that kind of thing, I think we didn't genuinely see this coming. No. We were boiled frogs. Because it's fine it felt like it was okay to call somebody she, her.
Yes.
But then when that she, her wants to go into prison, they say to you, "But don't you remember, you've already agreed that I'm a woman."
Exactly.
And it's those tiny steps that you find yourself on this kind of conveyor belt where at any point it's quite difficult to jump off. Yeah. And I think we need to look at all these tiny little things which we might have been perceived to be kind or helpful or accommodating, and really think accommodating and kind to whom?
Yeah.
You know, let's look at this in a really cold-eyed, clear-eyed way. I don't think things will change overnight, but things will change a lot for LGBT Alliance. I think we'll be able to do things, for example, like get on with the production of our services and our support for gay people without having to constantly fight about who those gay people are.
Yeah.
You know, once this argument's out of the way, we can concentrate on our core work. And just celebrate, you know, being lesbian, gay, or bisexual. You know, it used to be fun. It used to be fun, and it can be again. And that's really what we want to capture.
More
and get back
dancing
to.
lesbians. That's what we want.
Yes,
that's a campaign. So good to talk to you. You've been a fantastic fighter on this issue. Kate Barker, Chief Executive of LGBT Alliance. Your reaction to the ruling from Stonewall. Again, a charity that did so much amazing work for the rights of gay people. And I think anyone, you know, what does it matter to you who people fancy? Just like, you know, let people get on with their own lives and have equal rights. But that's very different from trans activists wanting to take the rights of women.
Well, that's right, and I think Kate summed it up perfectly and said kind and accommodating as we've all been, but to who?
Yeah.
And it's not to us, it's not to the lesbian community, it's not to women in general.
But I was one of the fascinating arguments we've had from Stonewall and the like, saying that, but you know, you can't, you know, trans women, i.e. trans-identified men, need to be in women's bathrooms because they're at risk from men in men's bathrooms. That was why the women didn't want to be in men's bathrooms. I mean, they literally used the argument for single-sex bases against women having single-sex bases.
Yeah, exactly, and go away. This is our space. I mean, I wear a pair of trainers, which I have today. Doesn't mean I'm an athlete.
No. I have to say, I mean, I think the summary of today should be, shh, bored now, move along.